Hi, I'm Stuart Baker, and we're here for another episode of the Chamber Talk. Today I have our Chief of Police, Dan Foss. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Stuart.
All right. So it's been about 2 years since you've joined the force, or you've joined leading the force. Tell us about what's been, say, a favorite experience of yours in these 2 years.
You know, man, I have so many favorite experiences coming up here. It's just a beautiful area. So that was one of my first favorite experiences, is just coming to this area.
Right.
But I would have to say it's something that I've always enjoyed doing, and it's been a real pleasure here, is just building relationships. Okay. The people here are great. They want to talk. They want to discuss issues and concerns, and they welcomed me with open arms, and it's been wonderful. So
Nice.
I've got a lot of new friends up here. I've only been here, as you said, 2 years in June, so not even 2 years yet. And I feel like I have a lot of new friends and a lot of new relationships that we're able to develop.
Yeah. So, and you come from Madera County, which is in the Central Valley, and quite a different community than here. Tell us about some of the biggest differences. Like, you were there how many years in that?
I was there about 20 years.
20 years. Okay, so you got used to that routine pretty well.
I did.
And what happened? Like, you came up here and it was different, and what were the biggest noticeable differences?
You know, there's the things that you're prepared for, and then there's the things that you weren't prepared for. So probably the biggest surprises for me coming up here, and it's things that you wouldn't think of at all, but coming from the Central Valley, obviously there's so many differences from the types of crime that you're dealing with to many other factors. But you know, the one that really threw me off that I was surprised about was the shift from every conversation in the Central Valley is based on water. They're out of water. There's no water. And every conversation was that. And as soon as I came here, every conversation is fire-wise. Every conversation is based around fire. And it sounds weird that it would be, you know, one of the biggest surprises, but where I'm at in government, you see where a lot of the funding's going and where our focus is at. And that shift for me was like, oh, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
The other one, this is just kind of comical almost, but I don't know how I'm getting used to it now, but the driving up here, when you come from the valley where everything's flat, everything's built on a rectangle and it's super easy. And when I came here and it's like you're going, you know, south on Pine Street, I'm like, I'm going west. I know I'm going, you know, and the roads are curving and they're tiny. It's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But
Right. No, I can imagine. And then you get into the mountain roads and all of this.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and I know that there have been some previous struggles with the police department. And there was a difficult period of time with some issues that had come up. What have you done to move beyond that period?
For me, it's, again, building relationships and communication. The police officers, I like to tell everybody, we're here 24/7, even on Christmas. So we are here every day, all the time. During that time, we're going to make mistakes. That's guaranteed to happen. But I also can guarantee everybody that I'm going to have open communication, open dialogue, be honest and direct. And if we do make mistakes, we're going to overcome them together as part of the community.
Right.
You know, we're never going to get perfect, right? We're never going to hit that for humanity. But as long as we're making progress, we're doing better. And I think right now we're making progress. And a big part of that for me is, again, communication and relationships.
Yeah. And so on those lines, where do you see the police department going? Like, what would be your 5-year plan or some direction that you'd like to see that the police department does that it's currently not doing, or the bandwidth?
I would hope that people have kind of noticed it. I think we're already making a lot of progress on this. But my motto has always been servant policing. And what I mean by that is that my officers, that the community, that everybody understands, I am here as a servant for the community. People think law enforcement, and that means taking somebody to jail or enforcing laws, and it does mean that in part. But it also means, do you have a problem bring it to me, and how do I solve it? On the side of cars, it always says usually to serve and protect. And they'll focus on the protect side, but serve comes first. And I think that's a huge part of the direction that I've wanted to go is we are servants of our community. And it sounds almost subtle, but to me, it's a very big piece of law enforcement.
No, I think that's great. And kind of along those lines in terms of serving, tell us about all the animals that you've seemed to have collected in the last 2 years as well. We've got Ruby, the bloodhound, and we've got, Sunny, the pony.
Yeah.
So
mini horse.
Mini horse. Okay, tell us a little bit about the philosophy around adding animals to the force.
Well, Ruby, she kind of just hit everything right, because Ruby does serve a very special purpose. She is I used to oversee a canine division where I was at, and speaking of some of the differences between Central Valley and where we're at now, I didn't think we had the crime needs for a bite dog in Nevada City, or an apprehension dog. But we do have a need for a search and rescue dog, in my opinion. So bloodhounds are fairly rare in California. We actually had to really look around to find Ruby, and she is a search and rescue dog, and she's excellent at it. So the idea behind her is not search and rescue so much for suspects, which she can do, but it is for individuals that are lost. Not a number one, but a major issue in all law enforcement is people that are elderly, that have dementia, that wander away from homes. In our area, especially during the winter months, you have a very limited window to find that person.
True. Yeah.
And when you see a dog like a bloodhound that's able to track, it's almost supernatural when you watch it. I mean, it's crazy what they're able to do. So that is Ruby's primary function. Her secondary function is she's the most adorable animal on the planet. And Sunny doubles down on that. And the idea behind that is they used to call them coffee table books. So sometimes officers, I don't want to say it can be intimidating, but you might want to talk to a cop, but you're like, how do I start this conversation? Or what's going to get past that uncomfortable silence zone? Well, you bring in cute, rare, exotic animals to some degree, and people come up and they start interacting with the animals. There's a lot of studies that show animals do an immediate lowering of stress.
Yeah, cortisol. Right. Yeah, that's
so it brings people to the table, and it allows us to engage in the conversation so that we can start building the relationships.
Nice.
So, and I fully acknowledge it. A uniform is necessary, and all the equipment we carry is necessary, but sometimes it can be intimidating for somebody to come up and start the conversation.
Nice.
But the idea behind Sunny, the mini horse, is to bring families and everybody that, hey, we're not scary. Come talk to us. And that brings them to the table, and then we start the conversation.
Nice. So it sounds like you're making a lot of inroads around the connecting with the public. There's been a lot of, in the last couple of years, stories around police and policing in general. What do you feel like is the hardest thing right now to be a police officer in the world?
The hardest for me actually is to have people understand that we're not separate from the community, but we're part of. I love this community. I absolutely love it. I love being part of it. I love solving problems for it. But police, by their very nature, sometimes are looked at as separate from the community. So making sure people understand that, no, we are part of the community. We're all on this same boat together. We're all trying to make the same progress. And I think that's probably the hardest part of law enforcement, is making sure that people understand, no, we're the same as everybody here. We live in the community. Our kids go to school here. We shop here. It is our town as much as everybody else. We just have a specific role to play.
Right. And I know one of your roles is code enforcement, and I know that some of the viewers out there have dealt with, so there's been regulations that have gone lax during the pandemic around sandwich boards and neon signs. How has that process been for you, and what's your kind of approach to balance the needs of the merchants with the needs of upholding the, at least in the downtown, the historic ordinance?
So I do take this very seriously, and I do understand how even subtle things can have a dramatic impact on small business. My dad owned a small business for 48 years, so I know the stresses.
What kind of business was it?
He was a mechanic.
Nice.
So my dad was an auto mechanic. My mom owned a horse ranch, small horse ranch. So I know how small business, every little impact can be a traumatic impact when you're just trying to make it month to month, you know?
Right.
And so my approach for that always is, again, going back to problem solving. Here is the law, here is the ordinance, here is what we have to follow, but how can we get there so it's not going to impact you? Let's come up with some creative solutions if we can. A lot of times it's working with the chamber of how can we get to where we want to be, but inside the ordinance, inside the law.
Right.
So we're not, we're never going to come and say, hey, you're in violation, take this down, you have 24 hours or whatever.
Right.
We're always going to work with you and figure out how we can do this. And if it takes a couple weeks or some time to get something made or something crafted or some ideas going, that's just fine. Again, we're looking for progress.
Nice, nice. And I know police get a lot of grief for getting donuts. And
It's deserved.
It's deserved. But I am curious, what is your favorite type of donut?
So I think it's called the buttermilk, the maple buttermilk.
Those are good, I agree.
But yeah, when you work night shift, nothing's open at 3 a.m., but you know what is? The donut maker is starting to make his donuts for the morning, and there's nothing better than a super fresh, hot donut. So
that's great.
Get used to them.
Well, Dan, thank you so much
Of course.
for giving us your insight, and we hope you enjoyed your time with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next time. Thanks a lot.
Thank
I'm
you.
Stuart Baker with the Chamber.